guys, I already have the Not Polished Universal Tips on, and this color is M58. And before anything, I am going to go in and flatten out the top of the acrylic right there, because we're going to be doing an ombre nail on this one. Now that is flattened, I am going to lightly pull the rest of the product down to the tip of the nails. Press and pull it down all the way. There you go. And then we're just going to cut it off at the end again. Remember, anytime you guys are doing ombre, make sure the top is very flat, so the next color you put on, the blue doesn't peek through from underneath. Alright, always keep it flat. And this number is 108. Alright, and I'm just going to ombre it down very lightly. And then we're going to go in with another bead, actually, because this is actually a little bit too light. So I'm going to go in with the second bead. I'm just going to clean that up just a little bit right there. And then I'm going in with a second bead right there. And I'm going to pull it down. There you go. And then we're going to wait for that to dry just a bit, because if two colors are still wet, they're going to end up bleeding in each other rather than give it that ombre effect. So I'm just gonna wait for that to dry just a tad bit more. And now that this is a little bit more dry, I am gonna go in with a bright orange, just a little bit at a time, because this color is very vibrant. So if I pick up a big beads at once, it might end up covering the whole light orange on the bottom. So just work in tiny little beads like that. And then again, we're just going to go in with a tiny bit more. And we're going to wait for that to dry just a tad bit more before I'm going to go in with a hot pink. Now I'm going to go in with the hot pink, which is number M10 from Notpolish also. You see how that just kind of blended into each other? It looks like some kind of tropical drinks. For the next nail, again, we're going to use the number M58. Make sure you flatten out the top area first before we pull down the rest of the products like this. Press and pull, press and pull. And make sure you press it into the nails while you're pulling it down. Make sure you don't lose the shape of the nail too much, so it will save you a lot more time when you hand file later. And then we're just going to cut it off at the end like that. And I'm just going to press it into the shape a little bit more. Alright, again, we're going to wait for that to dry just a tad bit more before we apply on our second color. And I'm going to go in with a nude. This color is called Bear With Me, number M24. And I'm going to place my first bead right there. And we're going to pull it down, and this nude has a little bit of a sparkle. That's why I picked it, because it reminds me of sandy vibes. There you go. Make sure you clean off the edges. Alright, now I am going to place a second bead close to the cuticles, but not touching the cuticles. And I'm just going to lightly pull it down and then press it into the cuticles. Let the product just flush into with the cuticles like that. And then while this is still wet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my little what do you call this, starfish, and then we're just going to pick it up and just press it into the wet acrylic. So make sure you take advantage of the acrylic is still wet, and we're just going to pick up all the little accessory that we're going to put in here. We're going to just press it in there. Make sure you use a little bit of pressure when you guys push it in. Okay, and moving on to our next nail, I am using a glow. This color is G8. It's a glow in the dark color. And then again, we're just gonna flatten out the top area first, and then press and pull it all the way down to the tip of the nail like that. And then we're just gonna cut it off at the end like so. And make sure you guys doing this very thin, on the thinner side, because we're gonna be encapsulating all these nails with crystal clear powder. And this is still the same orange, which is number M11, and this pink is still M10. And I'm just gonna lightly ombre it all together like this, very thin. And then I'm just gonna clean off the edges just a bit like that. Now that gives you more of like a sunset vibes right there. I'm just make sure I'm cleaning it off. And now that is kind of dry, I'm gonna go in with a crystal clear powder and make sure the powder is a little bit on the runnier side so we don't have those little air bubbles in them. Right, I'm just gonna lightly push it into the nail first because it's still a little bit more on the runner side. So just push it into the nail, and now that is set a little bit more, then we press and pull it all the way down to the tip of the nails. So when the acrylic is still really wet or runny, make sure you're not pulling it or dragging it off the nail because you're gonna end up taking too much product off the nail. So make sure you just kind of press it into the nails and let that set a little bit, and then now I'm just gonna pull it off and cut it off at the end of the nail like this. We're just gonna do that to all of the nails, all right? And now that is all done, I am gonna go in with my 5-in-1 cross bit from Notpolish and just smooth out the top of the nails like that. And again, I like to use my bit to taper in the side of the nail so I don't have to use too much hand filing later. Same go for this nail. This has been encapsulated. So we're just gonna go in and smooth it out and shape it up just like the rest of the nails. I'm not gonna go into too much details because my main goal today is showing you guys how to do the palm tree and the little waves looking nails. All right, so I'm just gonna go in and just shape all these nails up, and I'm using the Notpolish hand file. You guys have to get yourself one of this. This is the best hand file, very strong, very sturdy, and it's wide, so I always use a wide file when I'm doing my shaping. And that's done. We're gonna go in and just buff it out nice and smooth. And this is an ombre gel from Notpolish, so I'm gonna just put it on the whole nail first. It's an ombre gel, and then I am gonna clean off the edges just a bit like that. And I don't have to put it super close to the cuticles because I won't be using doing the ombre effect all the way to the cuticles, so I can leave that out just a tiny bit. And when this is done, I'm going to cure it under the UV light for 30 seconds. And then when this is cured for 30 seconds, I am going to use a brush, any type of brush, but this is the Notpolish ombre brush, and I'm just going to lightly dust on the number 70 from Notpolish, which is a dark blue, and I'm just going to give it more of a darker ombre effect at the end like that. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because it's the easier way of doing the dark ombre, because dark blue ombre is kind of hard to do, so this is the easier and the faster way of doing it. And we're gonna go in with a matte top coat on both of the nails, and after the matte top coat is done and cure, make sure you wipe it down with alcohol before you draw on the palm tree, or else the pigment is gonna stick to the matte top coat when you about to rub on your pigment on the palm tree. So make sure after you put on the matte top coat, you wipe it down with alcohol just to make sure that is nice and clean and it's not sticky or anything sticking to it. Okay, so matte top coat, wipe it down with alcohol, and then draw on your palm trees. Do not forget that step, because if you forget that step, like I did on this video, but I'm gonna show you what happened later at the end. So make sure you wipe down the matte top coat before you draw on the palm trees. It's very important. Alright, I'm just gonna go in and just draw on the palm trees for you guys right now. But make sure you remember that step, because it's not gonna be good if you forget to wipe down the matte top coat. There you go.
Sensing a smile.
when we're done with this, we're gonna cure it for 30 seconds under the UV light. So now that's curing. I'm moving to my next finger, and what I did is I took a little bit of my brush right there, dip it in acetone, and then directly dip it into the gel polish. And now give it that more like diluted down the gel paint a little bit more. You see how runny the gel looks? That's because I dipped my brush into acetone and then dip it into my gel polish, and then that kind of dilute down the paint for me. And now that it's on there, what I'm doing is I'm just using a little bit of acetone to kind of spread it out a little bit more. So this brush, there's nothing on it, it's just a little bit of acetone to clean it and dilute it out a bit more. So dip the brush in acetone and just kind of dab it on the nails and just move it around to create more of a wavy or that beachy effect like that. And then we're gonna cure that under the light for 30 seconds when we're done. So what I'm using now is just still a little bit of acetone, just kind of clean it off a little bit, and then we're gonna cure it under the light for 30 seconds. All right, now that is cure, we're gonna go in and rub on the pigment on top of the palm trees. And this is when I realized I forgot to wipe down the matte top coat before I drew on my palm tree. So what I had to do is I had to trace over the palm tree with another palm tree after I wiped down the matte top coat. So I just trace it over again and rub on the pigment so it's not sticking to the whole nail, but just sticking to the white polish. Now you see how the pigment is sticking to it. It doesn't look like how the pigment was sticking to it like earlier. So I'm just gonna go in and rub on the pigment, and you can see some of the white that's peeking through. That's because when I trace it over, I could not see where I missed a spot, but I like the way it looked. It looks pretty cool, and it goes with my white waves with the seashell nail. So I'm just gonna keep it like that, but you can see the mistake that I made. All right, so I'm just gonna rub it on the pigment, and I thought the white looked cool, so I'm just gonna keep it instead of going in and covering it up with more pigment. So I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then I'm dust it off, and then I am gonna go in with a little bit of acetone and just clean off at the end like that, just a bit at the end because I want the blue to expose more, and I don't have to worry too much about right here. Just a little bit, just a tiny bit is fine, but more so at the end of the nail because I want that dark blue to show through a little bit more. So I'm just going to clean off, and then a little bit tiny at the top just to make sure that hot pink is showing through. And anytime you guys rub on the pigment, if it gets on the cuticles and the nail, that's okay. It's gonna get messy. Just have your clients go wash their hands with soap after you're done, and everything will be clean. So now that's done, we're just gonna go in with a matte top coat. And this matte top coat is also a matte top coat from Notpolish, and I'm just gonna brush it on the whole nail. And you see how I kind of brush off the pigment just a little bit. Don't use too much pressure when you guys apply on the top coat because it can drag the pigment off the design. All right, again, we're gonna go in with for the next nail, what I'm applying now is a jewelry gel. It's available on Notpolish also, so I'm just gonna apply on the jewelry gel, and then we're gonna go in and apply your rhinestone right on top of it. And this jewelry gel does not dry sticky. It dries, what do you call it? Smooth, like not sticky. And then I'm just gonna apply on my gems, and I'm just gonna use my little finger just to clean off the edges of the excess of the jewelry gel. So now that is nice and clean, I clean it off. Just make sure when I put on my matte top coat, it doesn't ruin the matte effect. So now that is nice and clean, I'm just gonna go in with a matte top coat on the whole nail like this. And then I'm just gonna clean off the edges. And this is the final product. And you see how that little white on the palm tree kind of go with the nail, but that was an accident. All right, guys, see you guys next